So we're airborne. We just took off from this Dennis. We're flying eastward towards this target. This is going to be our target, Kutazi. This is going to be, it's already set as waypoint 1. And we're going to use that with our 8 JSOWs and the lightning pod that are on the plane to take out, or attempt to take out, those 8 tanks that are at the target. So we're kind of just talking today, how do you find the targets? Where are the targets? We know they're out there somewhere. I'm not facing towards them. They're more off to my left, I know. So how do we find it? So first things first is, we're going to get rid of that guy. Master Arm, air to ground mode. You want to select your JSOWs, obviously, and it's going to count down from 10 minutes to 7.5 minutes. You want to do that. Typically, you want to do that before you even take off, depending on how close you are to your target. You don't want to get airborne and then, you know, be there and you're not timed out. Also, your FLIR, you want to turn your FLIR on when the ground crew puts the FLIR pod on your plane. You can turn it on. If you turn it on before the ground crew actually puts it on, it's gonna turn itself off. So FLIR right DDI, stores left DDI. We're gonna SCS right to get their soy on that page. Setting up the JDAMs, you can do this on the ground. You're probably not supposed to do it, but you can do it anyways. eFuse, set that to instant. That's gonna set the instant for all your JSOWs. Your mode, your mode will be only set to the pylon itself. So we have 4 pylons, so we have to select each pylon individually and set our mode to TOO. Pre-planned mode, you're never going to use that. So mode TOO, and we're going to step through all the pylons and set them all to TOO. So, and you can quickly jump through them all, make sure they're all TOO. eFuse is set to instant for all of them by default once you change that over. The rest of these don't do anything. JSOW display in here, don't really worry about it. And we're going to click on this MSN right here. And this is going to be your mission page. So right now, each individual bomb is going to require a GPS coordinate in order to launch. If you just launch it, it's just going to fall and land in the ocean. So the GPS coordinates are going to be located here. If you use the PP mode, you'll have to type them in, which is kind of a pain in the ass to do. So we're just going to use the FLIR pod. The FLIR pod just gets the coordinates, and the FLIR pod tells the JDAMs where to land, where to impact. So we're going to undesignate twice. That's going to set to the home position. Now the little camera's on. We're going to undesignate again, and now we get the reticle. When we get the reticle, this is where the camera is looking. If we designate, we're going to designate that target, like just a random target right there. So that's where the camera is looking, and on the HUD we also have where the camera is looking. So once we get a little bit closer, if we can't find the target on our FLIR page from 20 nautical miles away and we get closer, as we slew the camera, that's going to move on the HUD as well. That just gives you a better idea, like if you can visually see the target through your, through the cockpit. So if I can visually see the runways right there, you know, I'm gonna slew it over, or if I can see if it's night and you can actually visually see the lights on the target, you'll be able to slew it. And you'll have an idea of where this camera's looking. If you're zoomed in quite far, it's kind of disorienting, like what you're looking at. Like you see buildings or whatever roads, but you can't really tell what it is that you're looking at. As far as finding these specific targets, if you want to use the F10 map, you can. You don't have to. I like to use it. It just gets me within the ballpark. So I'm going to select this guy right here. This is going to be able to, you're going to get your range, 50 nautical miles, and your bearing to the target. So for me, if I go roughly to center there, roughly to there, I can get 50 nautical miles, 59 nautical miles at a range, a degree of 78 degrees. Now with magnetic deviation, I have to subtract 6 degrees from that just based on where we are in the Caucasus. So the heading's actually going to be 72 degrees from my current location. Oops. So if we come back here, unpause it, I'm going to turn heading roughly 72. Ooh, jeez, trying to do this one hand. Just get a ballpark right down here. Down here, we're gonna hold heading out of the way, so we get H select, and we're gonna hit 072, enter, autopilot, hold heading select, and B alt. So now this is gonna give us, if we come back here, as we're flying, it's still 78 degrees, so it's really 72 degrees. Which is where we're flying to, and our altitude's holding. Basically, when we're setting up these JDAMs, or JSOWs, JDAMs, JSOWs for all intents and purposes are the same thing. JSOWs just have wings that have better range. we're going to be flying heads down, which means we're not looking at the cockpit. If we want, we can probably bring an EW page up here, or the SA page, if you have an AWACS in your area, just to help you with like not getting ran up on. But for most of the time, we're just going to be looking heads down as we're flying towards the target. We're kind of like on final approach to the target. We're a fair ways out, but at 50 nautical miles, we might be able to find it. So I'm going to show you a couple of ways of how to find it. So we're looking at about ballpark 50 nautical miles to the target. So if I undesignate, and now, so right, when you undesignate your camera, the home position, and here is, it's looking directly in front of you, just slightly down. So if I designate that target right there, I can see that it's that target on the ground is 33 nautical miles away from me. So I know the target is roughly 50 nautical miles away from me. So if I slew this up, just not past the horizon, I'm going to be looking right about there. What was it? It's about 50.6, 50.5, 50.3 nautical miles ish. It's kind of a rough estimate as to where it is. So I'm going to be looking right about there-ish to where the target is. So now we're going to fly until that actually renders in, because the game only renders, what, 45 nautical miles away? So we have to actually wait until we can visually see it on the screen. Okay, so now, now the game actually renders in that far away from the plane. So if we take a look back here, we're looking at about 40 nautical miles away from the target. So if we look on our screen, right here, TGT 39.9, we're looking 72 degrees in front of us, about 40 nautical miles away, and you can see that's an airport right there. You know, you're not going to be perfect. You'll be within basically 1 degree of your heading. You know, 70, like at 40 nautical miles, 1 degree off is quite a far distance. So as long as you're within a degree of where you're looking with your H-select, you're going to be okay. So we can see the airport. We can zoom in. And now we can start to see what looks like black dots on here. We're in TV mode, we're not in the FLIR. Switched over to FLIR, white hot, black hot, normal stuff. So using the F10 map, zooming in, now we're going to zoom in. We see 8 targets, 4 on one side of the runway, 4 on the other side of the runway. You're going to want to use landmarks as kind of like where you're looking on here. Things can get kind of disorienting, like if you have Jeeps or like static vehicles parked around, you might be targeting vehicles you don't need to destroy, that you can, but you don't need to. Since you can only hold 8 bombs at a time, and there's 8 targets here, I don't really want to target something that's not a tank. So I know I'm engaging 8 tanks, so I want to be looking for stuff that, you know, that right there I can see has a turret on it. I can't zoom in anymore, that's as far in as I can zoom. So I can see 1, 2, 3. That's not a thing. That doesn't look like a tank. There's no turret on there. That's not one either. There's one up there. And is there one? That thing's past the runway. If I use the map, there's nothing actually past the runway itself. I know they're all within either side of the runway. So there's one there. There's one that should be back here. Right there. That's one. That's one. That's one, that's one. 2, 3, 4. So 4 on each side. Because basically, as I'm slewing this around now that they're in like, not quite visual range, but within range of the FLIR, as I'm moving, I have this designated to a target. If I don't have it designated, it's not going to work. So I need to designate this arbitrary point as the bombing point, for lack of a better term, for the JSOW, which is translated from the FLIR to the JSOW on this screen here. So as I slew it around, the coordinates for the bomb, the specific bomb, are going to be moving. Now, what I cannot do is designate 8 individual targets. I can't tell each individual bomb, like, pre-planned. That's the other mode, right? This is just the target of opportunity mode. So I have to one at a time, designate a target, launch a bomb. Designate a target, launch a bomb. Drop a bomb. Whatever. Bombs away. Pickle. So I can't select all 8 targets and then drop all 8 bombs at the same time and impact all 8 at the same time, I will have to pick a starting point, cycle through the targets manually, drop the bombs manually, and hope I don't miss. So just in this scenario, I'm going to be targeting the tanks somewhat in that order as I slew it around. I'm going to do like a kind of a horseshoe thing. Drop, 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 move over to the other side of the runway, drop, drop, drop. And then fly away before I even get within range of their anti-air or SAM sites typically. So basically I'm going to be starting with this guy. So we have our heading select maintained. We look just off this first target, I can see that I'm somewhat more to the left than 72 degrees, so I'm actually going to switch this. I'm going to pause it. I'm going to switch my heading to 71 degrees just to get it slightly more in range. I'm going to hold my B alt at 26,000 feet. The higher you are isn't necessary. Doesn't have that big of impact on the drop zone. The drop zone can be seen in the HSI right here. The thing that has a bigger impact on the size of the drop zone or your maximum range, like maximum release range, is going to be your speed. So I'm only at 200 knots because I had to climb to 26,000 kind of quickly. So if I go to max thruster, max afterburner, I guess, you're going to see this timer counting down is going to be, that's actually counting down quicker than 1 second because I'm going faster than I was when that calculated the actual release. And the quicker I go, the quicker this is going to count down. I'm just going to pause it real quick. Typically, you want to be at about 350 knots. 350 I find is going to be your best range as far as your maximum release. Not necessarily your height. You have the bombs, you're just transferring. You need to get the kinetic energy from your plane into the bombs, and that's done best by speed, not necessarily altitude. It just means you can throw them and they'll go farther because they're flying faster. There is no rocket assist or anything on these, so once you drop them, they just fall. But since they have their wings, they kind of glide. So the faster they are, the further you can shoot, not necessarily how high you are. The other way, if you don't want to use the F10 map and be more immersive to find, you know, your heading, this, that, and the other thing, how many are there, like where are they, that kind of thing. If you don't want to use the F10 map, the other way, I'm going to show you how to find your targets, where are you dropping your bombs, is going to be, let's undesignate that, actually let's set it to that. With your HSI, if you have, in this scenario I have it set up, if you're in a server or somebody else's server, whatever, playing with friends, you need to know where your waypoints are. That can be technically done with your main radio. Typically F10 will say other, and then you can get a list of waypoints from a server. In this scenario, I know that I designated waypoint 1 at Kataisi Airport. Now one thing I did intentionally was set waypoint 1, so this will give me a heading. I can see that I'm also flying at waypoint 1 that way. Typically when waypoints are set up, if they're not set up like accurately, you can actually miss the target. Obviously you don't want to just drop a bomb at in the general vicinity of waypoint 1 and hope to hit something. This is just going to get you, again, ballpark with the FLIR. So obviously I can, if I get my sensor up, if I hit my waypoint designate, that's going to look, now the FLIR just snapped to wherever waypoint 1 is. But the thing that I did intentionally wrong was set the altitude of waypoint 1 to 2,000 feet. So typically when you're doing a flight, you're going to set your waypoints as to where you're flying, but obviously planes fly at a higher altitude than ground, basically. So like typically when waypoints are set up at targets, the altitude is wrong. I can see here that I'm not looking at the airfield, but I technically am. I'm just looking right there. I'm looking 2,000 feet in the air above the airport. So what I have to do is double check in the data page of the HSI that the elevation is correct, which if I go to my UFC elevation, set it to 100 feet, it's going to change depending on your terrain. Obviously sea level 0 feet, the mountains back there 4,000 feet. So I'm just going to set it to 100 to get me a little bit closer. And obviously you do this ideally before you even take off or while you're climbing. You want to multitask. You don't want to just be flying and then have to set this up as you getting too close to the target. So we're going to come back now that it's set to 100 feet elevation. Now I'm going to waypoint 1 so I know where I'm flying. Waypoint designate, and now my FLIR is going to be looking at ground level at waypoint 1. There's the runway. I can see the runway. Now, since I'm not using my F10 map, I don't really know how many targets are there. I don't know where they are. I don't know what they are. I just know waypoint 1 is a red base and there's targets of opportunity there. So I'm on my FLIR mode. I'm on white hot, black hot. You're gonna have to see what works best in each scenario. I find white hot works pretty well. Zoom in, slew around. Here we can see there's white things all over the place. That thing in this scenario is not a target of opportunity. That's just a static radar dish or radio tower or something. That's not a tank. In this case, we know we're engaging 8 tanks. Maybe that's in the briefing. Maybe that's in reconnaissance. Maybe you already did a flyby. You took out a couple and you saw a bunch more. So now what we're doing is we're literally just looking what can we shoot at. So I know this guy's going to be a guy. So I'm going to designate him. That's as far in as I can zoom. When I'm targeting him, basically, move this down. The left side and the right side of this diamond, I want to set that an imaginary horizontal line at his tracks. I don't want to set it at his turret. I want to set it right, kind of right where he intersects the ground. Shut up. If you aim at his turret, when we get closer, we're still a minute 40 away. We're still kind of far away. We're 35 nautical miles away from the targets yet. As you get closer and they get bigger and you're zoomed in more, you'll be able to get better accuracy with it. But for all intents and purposes, you want to line it up with his track so the bomb impacts him and the ground he's on and not above him, because right there you're looking at his turret, but technically you're reading the ground behind the tank, and the lower the elevation you are, the greater the distance, and you'll miss. Basically the bomb will fly right over his head if you're looking right at him. You want to be aimed a little bit further down, but you'll see that better as the closer we get to the target. So I'm going to unpause before we run out of fuel. We're going to go max afterburner. We're still in max afterburner. We're going to get closer to the target. So right now I'm looking at 127. This is real time. It's just counting down quicker because we're accelerating. We're also on the HSI. You can also see this ring. You might not be able to tell, but this ring is growing as this is counting down since we are accelerating. If we were holding at 250 knots, the ring would stay stationary. So I'm going to speed this up while we get closer. So now we're in range. I'm going to hit pause again. And typically you don't want to fire the second you get into range. If you were decelerating as you got into range, your bombs would actually miss, because the kinetic energy is actually getting lost from the bombs as you're kind of crossing the threshold. So you don't want to drop right at your maximum. You want to fly in. Typically what I'll do is, can't really see that very well. So we're at, in this scenario, we're at 26.5 nautical miles. I'm actually going to wait for it to get to 26, so a half a nautical mile closer, just so I know the bombs will actually reach the target. Also keep in mind, as if you slew away, your range increases. So right there, I'm out of range. So whenever I'm approaching the airfield, I want to start at the targets closest to me and work away. In this scenario, it's just easier for me to work in that horseshoe pattern so that I don't overfly the target before I'm able to actually release the bombs. Now that I'm slightly closer, you can kind of see, I want to put this diamond more on his tracks at the ground, where he intersects the ground, than at his turret. So we're in range. I'm going to unpause and try to slew. You're basically slewing and dropping bombs as quick as you can. So let's see how we do. 1 away. 2 away. 3 away. 4 away. So that's 4 on that side of the runway. I know there's going to be 4 on this side. Zoom out a little bit. I think that's the guy right there. That's one there, yeah. See his turret. 5 away. I think that's one there. Yeah, that looks like a turret. 6 away. Now, if I wasn't sure if that was one there, I can visually see it is. If I look at my F10 map, I know I'm looking at this guy. This guy's right at kind of the intersection of the taxiway and the runway. Oops. So that's where this guy is. 7 away. And the last guy is just to his south, right there. And again, right at his tracks. 8 away. So now I'm going to put it back in active pause mode. So now we're at 60 nautical miles. Our last one is 60 nautical miles we released. Typically now we're going to turn and burn. We don't need to fly any further close. We don't need to get any closer than we need to the base. If there's man pads, SAM sites, whatever, you want to stay as far away as you can, and that's about as close as you can. If you did this with JDAMs, JDAMs are the exact same thing, assuming you're using the 500-pound warheads. If you're using the 2,000-pound JDAMs, you're going to have to get closer because they're heavier. But JDAMs themselves, you have to get closer. You can't release them this far away. The benefit is these JSOWs, as we watch them fly in, can be shot down by anti-aircraft. Some SAM sites can as well. Where JDAMs, the bombs, the 500-pound bombs, I don't believe can be blown up by SAM sites or anti-aircraft fire. These count as air-to-ground missiles and can very much be shot down out of air. These tanks won't shoot them down though. Now let's watch them impact. So not bad. We fired 8 bombs, hit 6, and we were very close to 1 and 3. But that'd be about it. So thanks for watching, and see you later. Hello. 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 God damn it, I don't like talking. If I could just like do the fucking, like just push the button, just follow along. Whatever button I push, you push, you'll figure it out. You know, I don't like, what do I gotta talk, okay? That's what we're gonna do, you know? Fuck it. We're gonna do it. You're gonna push whatever buttons I push, and it's gonna be like that because that's the way it is.